So let's get into it. Cancer rising for the zodiacal year ahead, Aries to Pisces season 2022 to 2023. If we haven't met yet, my name is Shuka. I am a traditional astrologer that uses both Hellenistic and ancient Persian techniques in order to decipher the language of the stars and map out what's coming up for you. Feel free to like and subscribe for future videos that help you maximize your potential using the stars, like they say, as above, so below. In order to jump into the spring season, which covers Aries, Taurus, and Gemini season, we need to go back a little bit to December 29th, 2021, when Jupiter moved into your Pisces 9th house. This house deals with things like higher education, morals, ethics, philosophy, and foreign travel. And with Jupiter at home here in Pisces, think of it as abundance or expansion in this area of life. It will stay here through May 10th, 2022, when it will move into your Aries 10th house, dealing with your public image and your public career. And back on February 3rd of 2022, all planets station direct, and they will remain that way until April 29th of 2022. Think of this as a go, go, go vibe, a propelling forward, so to speak. On March 20th, 2022, the sun makes its way into Aries, marking the beginning of a new zodiacal year and spring. On April 4th, 2022, Mars conjuncts Saturn in your Aquarius 8th house. Now, this house deals with things like shared resources, taxes, and investments. And Mars being the planet of action, Saturn being the planet of restriction or boundaries or structure, and particularly in Aquarius, having its favorite word be no. Think of it as wanting to take action in this area of life and being met with a hard stop. On this day, don't worry, things ease up as Mars makes its way out. On April 12th, 2022, Jupiter conjuncts Neptune in your Pisces 9th house of foreign travel, philosophy, religion, and higher education. Try not to make any irreversible decisions during this time. There is a chance that you may put things on a pedestal or may see things as too good to be true. You may not see them as too good to be true, but they actually might be too good to be true. There may be some confusion or delusion surrounding some things, so it's best to wait until this passes before you do anything you can't take back. On April 29th, 2022, Pluto stations retrograde in your Capricorn 7th house of relationships, one-on-one relationships, intimate partnerships, things of that nature. Ending this all direct motion. Think of this as a rethinking in this area of life. Pluto in general tends to be the transformative planet. It transforms. So think of it as kind of getting down to deep-rooted aspects of how you show up in these one-on-one relationships and potentially having a rebirth moment at the end of it when it does station direct again. On April 30th, 2022, there is a partial solar eclipse in your Taurus 11th house. This house deals with things like social networks, groups, organizations, and future goals. And with the partial solar eclipse being, think of it as like a catalyst event outside of your control, outside circumstances that sort of set off a chain reaction that leads to a new beginning in this area of life. On May 10th, 2022, Jupiter enters your Aries 10th house. This is the house of your public career and public image. This is a growth and expansion in this area, shifting away from that foreign travel and higher education and philosophy and moving it into your public image and your public career. On May 15th, 2022, there is a total lunar eclipse in your Scorpio 5th house. Think of this as outside catalyst events that trigger a ending of some kind in, you know, the area of like sex, romance, fun, playfulness, creativity, and anything that you birth into the world. And on June 4th, 2022, Saturn stations retrograde in your Aquarius 8th house. Now, with Saturn being the planet of boundaries or structure or resistance, think of this as internalizing that. In this area of life dealing with shared resources, taxes, and investments, you may be rethinking the structure of these things or putting some internal boundaries on them yourself, which takes us into the summer season, a much slower season, all about revisiting, reanalyzing, reviewing things that we've already been through. This is Cancer, Leo, and Virgo season. On June 28th, 2022, Neptune stations retrograde in your Pisces 9th house. Think of this as like idealism or dreams kind of being brought more into the internal, focusing more on internal philosophy, internal religion, things of that matter, spiritual matters, things of that nature. And on July 28th, 2022, Jupiter stations retrograde in your Aries 10th house. So think there's this big growth and expansion in this area of life dealing with your public image and your public career. And with Jupiter stationing retrograde, it's like you're rethinking that expansion that may have occurred. And on August 24th, 2022, Uranus stations retrograde in your Taurus 11th house. Think a revisiting of any innovative solutions or any disruption to your social network, your groups, organizations, or future goals. And this takes us into the fall season, dealing with Libra, Scorpio, and Sagittarius season. On October 8th, 2022, Pluto stations direct in your Capricorn 7th house. So whatever revisiting you did of how you work in these one-on-one relationships, think of it as like being transformed and being able to implement that. On October 22nd, 2022, Saturn stations direct in your Aquarius 8th house. So whatever boundaries or restrictions may have taken place with your shared resources, your taxes or investments, think of it as now moving direct in a motion that is still restrictive, but at the same time providing some sort of structure in this area of life. On October 25th, 2022, there is a partial solar eclipse in your Scorpio 5th house of creativity, love, romance, fun, and anything that you birth into the world. So as we had a ending catalyst event back on May 15th, this is a new beginning of some kind that we have here in this area of life. On October 27th, 2022, Jupiter retrograde moves back into your Pisces 9th house of foreign travel, philosophy, higher education. So think you were rethinking whatever was going on with your public image and public career, and that shifts back to rethinking the growth and expansion that you had in those 9th house area topics. On October 30th, 2022, Mars stations retrograde in your Gemini 12th house. This house deals with things like your mental health, isolation, and Mars being the planet of wanting to take action. With it being retrograde, it's more like rethinking how you take action in your mental health, rethinking any isolation that you put together for yourself, and kind of reanalyzing the actions that you do take in this area. On November 8th, 2022, there is a total lunar eclipse in your Taurus 11th house. So we had that new beginning in this area of life dealing with friend groups and social structures and future goals back on April 30th of 2022. This is a catalyst event leading to an ending of some kind in this area, potentially, you know, shifting the groups that you may be working around with, or maybe shifting some future goals. On November 23rd, 2022, Jupiter stations direct in your Pisces 9th house. I don't know if you remember back in 2021, between May and July, Jupiter dipped into Pisces before going back into Aquarius. It then re-entered Pisces on December 29th until May 10th, and now it's going to be stationing direct here in your 9th house again. So think of like that first one, May to July, is the preview. The December 29th to May 10th is like the big expansion, the climax, the center. And now this final dip into Pisces for Jupiter before it comes back here in about 12 or so years is sort of like the wrapping up of the expansion in this area of life, dealing with higher education, philosophy, foreign travel. On December 3rd, 2022, Neptune stations direct in your Pisces 9th house. So think that idealism or, you know, this dreaming quality being re-entered into this area and outside factors. This again deals with higher education, foreign travel, moral ethics, philosophy, and religion. And on December 20th, 2022, Jupiter re-enters your Aries 10th house of public image and public career, really kicking off the expansion in this area of life. Which brings us to the final season of the Zodiac, winter season, encapsulating Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces season. On January 12, 2023, Mars stations direct in your Gemini 12th house, dealing with mental health and isolation. So think that you've rethought how you take action in this area of life and you're ready to move forward with it. On January 22nd, 2023, Uranus stations direct in your Taurus 11th house. This deals with things like your social network, your groups, organizations, and your future goals. So you've rethought whatever innovative solutions that you've come up with and you're ready to implement those as well. Between January 22nd, 2023, all the way through April 21st of 2023, all planets in the sky will be stationed direct again. So it's another go, 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 go time. And on March 7th, 2023, Saturn finally leaves your 8th house of shared resources, taxes, and investments alone and dips into that 9th house dealing with foreign travel, higher education, morals, philosophy, and ethics. So think of this as a restriction or boundaries or structure, moving away from those shared resources and investments and shifting into this new area of life. On March 15th, 2023, it's a cluster of a day. So pay attention to March 15th and March 16th of 2023. Mars in your Gemini 12th house will square Neptune in your Pisces 9th house. So think tension between your mental health and how you take action in your mental health at odds with your philosophy, your morals, ethics, higher education, and potentially foreign travel. So Mercury joins this party. So Mercury being communication and thinking, Mercury will conjunct the Sun and Neptune in your Pisces 9th house of foreign travel, religion, philosophy, ethics, higher education, and it will square, all of this will square Mars in your 12th house of mental health. So think of it as tension between these things. To quote Marion, it is a passive-aggressive mess because Venus in your Aries 10th house of public image and career will also square Pluto in your Capricorn 7th house, dealing with one-on-one relationships. There's a lot of tension here. The good news is tension is how things move forward, and at the end of this, you may be a lot better off than when you started. Which brings us to the end of the year, March 20th, 2023. The sun will move into Aries, marking a new zodiacal year. Let's go through the retrogrades. Remembering with all retrogrades, it's a time to use all the rewords, revisiting, reanalyzing, reviewing, not to start anything new, and definitely during the Mercury retrogrades, be ready for delays, unexpected wrenches thrown into the mix, transportation issues, and definitely do not cut your hair. On May 10th, 2022, Mercury stations retrograde in your Gemini 12th house, dealing with mental health. It will dip back into Taurus, your 11th house of friendship groups, organizations, and future goals, before it stations direct there on June 3rd, 2022. On September 9, 2022, Mercury stations retrograde in your Libra 4th house, dealing with things like your roots, foundation, property, and home. It will dip back into your Virgo 3rd house, which deals with community, neighbors, siblings, communications, and short-term trips, before it stations direct there on October 2nd, 2022. And on December 29th, 2022, Mercury stations retrograde in your Capricorn 7th house, dealing with one-on-one intimate relationships, partnerships, business partnerships, contracts, things of that nature, before it stations direct there on January 18th of 2023. Bringing us to the other planetary retrogrades, on October 30th, 2022, Mars stations retrograde in your Gemini 12th house of mental health and isolation, before it stations direct there January 12th of 2023. On July 28th of 2022, Jupiter stations retrograde in your Aries 10th house of public image and public career. It will dip back into your Pisces 9th house of higher education, foreign travel, philosophy, morals, ethics, and religion, before stationing direct there November 23rd of 2022. And on June 4th, 2022, Saturn stations retrograde in your 8th house of shared resources, taxes, and investments, before it stations direct there October 22nd of 2022. Taking us to the outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. On August 24th, 2022, Uranus stations retrograde in your Taurus 11th house, dealing with social groups, networks, organizations, and future goals, before it stations direct there on January 22nd, 2023. On June 28th, 2022, Neptune stations retrograde in your Pisces 9th house, dealing with foreign travel, religion, philosophy, ethics, things of that nature, before it stations direct there on December 4th, 2022. And on April 29th, 2022, Pluto stations retrograde in that Capricorn 7th house, dealing with intimate relationships, one-on-one relationships, business partnerships, and contracts. This is like a rebirth or a transformation in this area of life, before it stations direct there October 8th of 2022. And lastly, a recap of the eclipses. On April 30th, 2022, there is a partial solar eclipse in your Taurus 11th house of friend groups, social networks, organizations, and future goals. Think of this as outside of your circumstances, catalyst event, setting off a chain of events, creating a new beginning in this area of life over the course of the next 6 months. On May 15th, 2022, there is a total lunar eclipse in your Scorpio 5th house. This house deals with romance, sex, creativity, anything that you birth into the world, and fun. So think of this as a catalyst event outside of your control, setting off a chain of events that leads to an ending in this area of life over the course of the next 6 months. On October 25th, 2022, there is a partial solar eclipse in your Scorpio 5th house. Again, fun, creativity, sex, romance, anything that you birth into the world. Think of this as a catalyst event, again, outside of your control, setting off a chain of events that brings a new beginning in this area of life. And on November 8th, 2022, there's a total lunar eclipse in your Taurus 11th house, dealing with social networks, groups, organizations. So think ending in this area of life. So that's it for your zodiacal year ahead, Aries to Pisces season 2022 to 2023. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, particularly comment. I love to read how these zodiacal transits play out for everybody. Thank you for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.